Hey there, everyone. This is Bob Martin, the RC sub guy with the Nautilus Drydocks.com. And it is Saturday, January the 18th, 2020. This is the first RC sub guy live broadcast of the new year. Thanks for joining me. Got some fun topics lined up for discussion today, but as always, what we are looking for is questions and comments from you guys, the viewers. So what we typically have, for those of you that are not familiar with it, we get a really cool cross-section of people. We get experienced RC submariners in the crowd, and then we get a lot of beginners as well. So now's your chance to ask questions. I am going to try my best to answer them. Had a question right off the bat from Peter there. Is it possible to make the 1/350th scale Typhoon model RC? The answer to that would be yeah, of course. You can RC almost anything. Is it practical and would I do it? No, too small. The smallest model that I would feel comfortable converting to RC would probably be something in the vicinity of like 2 feet. Now, to preface that response, I am a big RC submarine guy. There are people out there converting like the little tiny, like 1/144 scale kilos and stuff like that. That's not my thing. But to answer your question, is it possible? Absolutely, it's possible. You can do it. You need to buy a ton of specialized RC equipment. You're talking about micro receivers, micro transmitters, custom made watertight compartments, mini lipos, all of that stuff. And everybody, realistically, the cost, a lot of the reason that people build small is because they think they're saving money, and you're not. The cost is in the RC components, and actually for a lot of them, it's more expensive to go micro than it is to go standard for RC gear. So if you're trying to build a small submarine for the sake of saving money, you're barking up the wrong tree. Get something that is going to be of a decent size, that's going to allow you easy access to the interior and allow you to use standardized RC components if and when possible. So there you go. Question from John Walls. What CAD program did you use to design your 3D printed subs? I actually designed most of them in Google SketchUp, and I know for those of you who are familiar with CAD, you're snickering because Google SketchUp is a free program, and really it's not designed for organic shapes. It's what I'm comfortable with. Now I've got a little bit of experience with Fusion, very little bit of experience with Fusion. I need to learn more, but everything that I've done thus far is on Google SketchUp. And for those of you who want to design your own parts and subs, Google SketchUp might be a great way to go. Now, my son is trying to talk me into Inventor, which probably has a few more powerful features to it. But for now, that's it. That is what I used, and hopefully that helps you out. So, it is now 2 minutes after 11 Eastern time, and I, which is uncommon, actually ended up with a couple of emails from people, and with questions, wanting me to touch on them during the live. So, hey, that is what this is all about, and if you hit me up before the live, I can do research and make sure that I have proper answers for you guys before we get started. This was an email from a Richard, and I'm going to butcher this, Porquidou. I believe he may be French. Two of them. One of them pertains to radios, and I saw a question in there about an update for the 75 megahertz radio availability. So let's start with that. For those of you that are unaware, you need to utilize low frequency radio waves to communicate with an RC submarine. Unfortunately, they don't manufacture them anymore because the gigahertz radios have a lot of advantages over those old low frequency radios, and therefore nobody is using them anymore. The only people that do are we submariners. So what we've been doing is kind of making do with the leftovers, so to speak. All of the modern radios that are out there are typically going to be operating on 2.4 gigahertz. They do not work. That's the number one question that people get. Can I use a gigahertz radio? No, you can't. But yes, you can. If you want a true diving, fully submerging RC submarine, you need to be operating on a low frequency radio. In North America, that means 75 megahertz, the approved frequency. And in Europe, I believe it is 40 megahertz. Now, many people, and I don't know if Ed Tortle is online here right now, is a huge proponent of utilization of 2.4 gigahertz radios because, of course, you can leverage all of those awesome features. The only thing you can't do is fully submerge your model. Now, you can have the periscope sticking out with the tip of your antenna, so you get that diving feel. You can operate at periscope depth. You just can't get below that. So it's a trade-off. You can have all the modern features of the new radios, or you can dive fully. Those are your two options. Now, the issue is that 75 megahertz radios are not manufactured anymore, and therefore we've got to kind of live with what's left over. Now, I've got about 15 75 megahertz radios in stock, but I managed to come up with about another 50. That's not going to carry us very far. So what we're looking at right now is a massive shortage of low frequency radios that will be hitting us later this year, realistically. I'm in talks right now with a few different manufacturers, and they would be happy to manufacture them for us. But they want a minimum order of 1,000 units in each frequency band. So for example, if I wanted to supply radios in 75 megahertz for North Americans and 40 megahertz for the people overseas, I'd be looking at purchasing 2,000 radios, which at our current rate of consumption should probably last us like 20 years or something like that. So that's not an ideal situation, particularly because I would be fronting all of that money, holding all of the inventory, and if the Federal Communications Commission decides to switch up frequencies on us, I'll end up with a ton of very expensive paperweights. Not awesome. So that's where we are at right now. I got a couple of other manufacturers that are supposed to be getting back to me and letting me know if they're interested in manufacturing those. If not, once that inventory of 75 megahertz radios are depleted, they will be gone, and we're going to have no choice but to join the modern day revolution, go with gigahertz radios, and modify the way that we operate our RC submarines. So there you go. Radios 101 for you. The other question that Richard had, let me see if I can angle this here so I don't have to hold it, was starting out with your first RC submarine. What do you do? Do you buy everything all at once? Do you buy the hull first? Do you buy the watertight compartment first? What do you do? So that is a matter of personal opinion. Now, what I would probably recommend, based on my experience and what I always do, is I build the cylinder first. The reason for that is that once you have the cylinder in place, you can begin mocking up the internal arrangement of your RC submarine. And if you don't yet have an RC submarine, you fully understand what the size needs to look like for the boat. So my advice would be, if you are just starting out, grab the RC gear first. get it all set up, get it working properly, understand how it works, and then you can move on to sourcing an applicable hull to put it into. Now, that is not a hard and fast rule because, especially if money is a little bit tight, maybe something that you want to do is buy a hull, work on getting it all built and painted. And then in the very worst case, you've got a beautiful display model that you can put out in your house. The bad news about that is you're not entirely sure what the access needs to look like. You don't know exactly how your linkages need to be run, where your space is going to go. So what I would recommend, grab your RC gear, grab your watertight cylinder, build out your watertight boxes, whatever you're doing, start with that and then move on to purchasing or sourcing an RC submarine hull. One thing that I would recommend if you're trying to decide what size to go with, hit me up, because ideally, the whole idea behind a watertight cylinder is flexibility in installation. So in theory, you can transfer that watertight cylinder between multiple models. So it would save you a lot of money to do it that way. In practical application, it doesn't usually work that way because the ballast required for each model changes. It's different because of the differing weight above the surfaced water line. But if you're unsure where to start, reach out to me, hit me up, bob@rc-sub.com anytime, or message me through my website. There's like a little chat window that pops up. It'll say I'm not online all the time, even though it comes to me fairly quickly. Hit me up through there and message, and I'll hit you back as soon as I can, typically within an hour or two. So there you go, radios and where to start if you're just getting into the hobby. Let me check here. Doesn't look like any other questions. Yeah, there's a comment in there about 72 megahertz radios for North America. That is absolutely viable. It works perfect. Technically illegal, so don't get caught. In practical application, you're probably not going to run into any problems. If there's an RC airfield nearby, however, and you crash someone's planes, you will be in deep caca if they catch you, because they can, in theory, seize not only your radio equipment, but your boat too. So use at your own risk. But if you're stuck and you know for a fact that there are going to be no RC airplanes or aircraft in the vicinity, go ahead, grab a 72 megahertz radio if you got it, and throw it in your boat. But you didn't hear that from me. All right, let's change the perspective here just so you guys don't get bored looking at the same thing. The other thing I've got queued up here, I was going through the comments on my YouTube channel, and they were talking about the waterproof servo video that I did. For those of you that have not seen it, and shame on you for not watching every single one of my 200 videos and memorizing them, but I did a video on how to truly waterproof a servo. You can buy waterproof servos online, and basically what the RC companies do is they put a little O-ring around the end, and then they call it waterproof. Waterproof servos are not waterproof. They are water resistant. They're designed to be put into boats and RC cars where they may get splashed, or maybe dunked, for a few seconds. They are not designed to be put into an RC submarine and submerged at depth for an extended period of time. They will fail, period. Now you can get commercial ones designed for use in like ROVs, but be prepared to pay hundreds of dollars for these things. The solution that I came up with based on my experience and some research that I did was to take a standard servo, or more ideally one of the waterproof servos, and make it truly waterproof by filling it with a non-compressible medium inside. And the one that I elected to utilize because it was handy and cheap was olive oil. And I got nothing but flack from people. Oh my gosh, it's gonna go rancid, it's gonna stink. The reason that olive oil goes bad is because it oxidizes. When something oxidizes, it mixes with oxygen. Now, if you put it in a sealed servo, there is no oxygen to oxidize the olive oil, so it is going to be just fine for an extended period of time. Now, all that said, I am going to readily admit that it is not a 10-year solution, okay? If you're putting a waterproof servo somewhere and you do it, I would say annual basis. So at the end of the season, throw a different servo that is commanding a system. If it's just like do that, like I said, my solution was not designed as a way to water pump back from people. If I do it again, by the way, I would probably skip the olive oil and go with mineral oil. Get the same sort of thing. It's a little bit more stable, just as readily, well, not quite as readily available, but just as inexpensive. So that would be something that you might want to think about if you are in the need of doing a waterproof servo. Let's check our chat here. Whoa, 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 here we go. Where can I find fitting kits for various sub kits? Well, let me back up here. I got someone saying, what is the price? Hello, what is the price? Seriously, what is the price of what? The price of an RC submarine? Thousands upon thousands of dollars. Factor in $1,000 to start for a cheap one. If you're gonna have someone else to build it, maybe they start at $3,000. There you go. That is the price. Until you're more specific, that's the answer that you're gonna get. Where can I find fitting kits for the various subkits? So this is another kind of grumpy thing with me. Everybody's like, well, where's the fitting kits? I can't build an RC submarine out of these model kits unless I have a fitting kit to convert it. These fitting, hold on one second, we're gonna grab one. These are a convenience. They are not a necessity, all right? There is no reason that you cannot convert an RC submarine without a fittings kit. Many people have done it. Now, this is a Revell Type 9 fittings kit, conversion kit that the illustrious David Merriman III put out and then rapidly determined is not a feasible commercial product because you would pay more for the fittings kit than you would for the entire model that you just purchased. That's because there is a mess of work that goes into these. You people do not understand the amount of work that goes into them. The idea behind them from a historical perspective is it was a kit that you would purchase that would facilitate the conversion of a plastic RC, a plastic model kit into an RC model kit. And they include drive shafts and couplers and resin pieces with the drive shafts, pre-installed in them. And actually now is a great chance to show you this. So I'm not going to bust into this package, but you can see, for example, right here, there's a rudder with a brass shaft through the inside. So that's a great example of a piece that you would get in these kits. Now, when you get the plastic model kits, you've got the plastic dive plane, and all you need to do is drill a hole and put a brass rod in there. That's all you need to do. What that conversion kit is doing that work for you, okay? If you can't do that yourself, I'm going to be mean here, okay? If you can't do that yourself, you have no business in the RC submarine world. You need to have the basic skills to fabricate a part to solder wires, to understand basic electrical theory. If you don't have those, this is the wrong hobby for you. And again, I'm hoping I'm not hurting anybody's feelings, but I'm going to save you a lot of hassle. This is not like an RC car where you pull it out of the box, you charge up the battery, you turn it on, you drive it, you finish with it, you turn it off, and you put it in the closet. This is a whole 2 levels above that, all right? This is, and I've said it before, and I'll continue saying it, a hobby for the elite. And I do not mean to say that to tout my own horn as an elite model builder, but what it basically means is that it requires a high degree of intelligence, problem-solving ability, and basic skills in order to build, operate, and maintain an RC submarine. If you do not have those skills, do not buy an RC submarine. Get the skills and then build the submarine. All right? I've got lots and lots of videos on YouTube that go into all of the different aspects of building an RC submarine. Hours and hours and hours of enjoyment for you to peruse at your leisure. So that's the fitting kits. They are not available anymore. To answer your question, I could have just said that they're not available anymore. They're not being manufactured because they are not economically feasible to do so. Although I would probably say, hey, if you are willing to pay $500 for a conversion kit, Dave Merriman will manufacture those for me all day at that price. But I'm willing to bet you ain't gonna pay that. So there you go. Much easier for you to buy a little bit of brass, stick it in the plastic part, and you're done. So, did I offend anyone? Let me check. Let me see here. Price of the radio, well, they're on my site, nautilusdrydocs.com. I will say, hey, you used to be able to pick them up for $80, and that's great, but now they're not being manufactured anymore, and the price has gone up significantly. Someone's asking about quitting, did I quit the Typhoon build? Hey, here's a great segue into sort of an update on the dry docks as a whole. I'm gonna let you guys in on a little secret. Selling stuff like this and like this churns cash, but it doesn't make any. There is no money in selling servos, parts, components, and kits, by the way, especially, you know, in our hobby, when you're manufacturing them one at a time, unless you get into, you know, the kits like, say, for example, Submarine Works Ohio, where he's charging $1,500 for a kit, you're going to make next to no money making kits for this hobby, because the only way you can do it is through economies of scale. And I'm not going to go into educating everybody about, you know, business practices and profit margins and all of that stuff. But this is the preface to what's going to be going on here. So my initial vision was to offer anything and everything for people, and I'm going to continue to do the best that I can. But I rapidly determined that to fork out $2,000 to $3,000 investing in a set of molds basically is a 2 to 3 year turnaround before I would even break even at the very low volumes that people buy. Everybody is always like, oh, if you build it, I will buy it. And then you build it and nobody buys it. When it comes time to buck up, not many people do, especially if the price charged is what the kit is worth. So to back up to your question about the Typhoon kit, I have everything here. The master is, you know, 3/4 of the way complete, but that is not a priority for me. My priority, just so that you guys know, is from this point forward going to be on customer builds for RC Submarine, making videos for you guys, blog articles, uploading information to the forums, and helping people understand how to build RC submarines. There are lots of kits in the market right now, and I don't need to be the person to bring more. All right. That's just my opinion. I don't have the time and I don't have the money to invest in more kits. I've got lots of kits on the market right now in my online shop. And, if I sell one or two a year, it's pretty standard. So everybody's super excited. Oh, I will get that kit, I'll buy it. Well, experience has taught me otherwise. So that's where we're at. All right. Let's see here. Is it possible to use 433 megahertz systems for submarines? Yeah. There have been some people that have successfully utilized that. Now, and I don't remember specifically, but the performance is not going to be as good as the lower frequency radios, but it is an option. There are no commercial kits available to the best of my knowledge. I tested, and if you check my video channel, a high power output 900 megahertz system, and I got very poor performance out of it. So the short answer is yes, 433 megahertz does work, but not as good as the 75 or 72 megahertz. Someone just bought Redoubtable. That is a dang cool submarine, isn't it? What sub driver do you have that will work with this sub? Hey, if you go on my website under the starter kit section, it will tell you exactly what you need. It's a 250, 300, 250 new style modular sub driver unit. I believe that particular one is an 11-inch tank, 8-inch tank, 11-inch tank, 11-inch tank on that particular build. And I have a starter kit that is available for it, and that includes basically 99% of everything that you need. It is on the website and available for purchase. Let's see here. You still carry electronics in your store? Is the store closing? No, I'm not shutting my store down. Not yet. As a bit of an update, my son Logan is 17 years old, and he is going to be stepping up as shop manager for the online store side of things. So he is going to be the face of the Nautilus dry docks. And he is going to handle all of the order picking, packing, and shipping for me. And that's going to clear up more time for me to work on builds and pushing videos and information out to you guys. So he is going to be the guy to yell at when your order doesn't get shipped or is the wrong one. But I'll still be double checking everything. You guys have some sketchy audio. I apologize. I don't know why. I got good signal strength here. I could try using sign language if I knew sign language. Lead time for new builds. I am currently booking out to fall 2020 as it stands right now, just so you know. Will I have more 3D files in the future? Yeah, I like, so these 3D files, for those of you that don't know, the idea is you can buy for like $50 the 3D files to 3D print your own RC submarine. The cool thing about it is you can scale it up, you can scale it down. On that note, I have an Astute kit that you can buy, or the files that you can buy, the British Astute class submarine in 96th scale. Got a customer, Eric Kloss, that's printing it out in 72nd scale. And I also had a good friend of mine, Dwayne Hill, a crazy Canuck up in Windsor, Ontario, who printed or had me printed out in 1/48 scale. That is a big boat. And again, I got that video on my channel as well if you want to check that out. But check out WindsorSub, WindsorSub. That's the username of Dwayne. And he did a stupendous job of showing the entire process of building up that submarine hull from 3D printed parts all the way to a fully functional RC submarine in 48 scale. That thing is huge. The propulsor is like this. I don't remember the overall length. It was like 6 feet long or something crazy like that. But he did a super awesome job. So circling back here, those 3D files, they're a great way to get into the hobby. The files that I make are typically set up so that you can kind of just drop your components inside, particularly if you go with a subdriver unit that I specifically designed it for. Now, having said all of that, I am going to educate you now on my experience with this. And hey, let's switch up the view here a little bit. This is redoubtable. I don't know if I'm saying that with the proper accent, but man, this model turned out really, really cool. Now you can see where this is sitting, right? Sitting on my workbench right by a garage door. Had it sitting there for a little while. What happened was the sun came through that window onto the back of the boat, and over the course of a couple of weeks created a bunch of warping in this rear section here. Now, just kind of think about that. That's why I had this covered in a towel, by the way. I'm going to do that again before I forget. If you're out at a pond and you leave this thing out on a hot, 95-degree day in the sun bearing down on it, that plastic is going to soften up. Now, you can get away from that by switching up the material that you 3D print that submarine in. I 3D printed that in PLA Plus, which is a little bit more stable than standard PLA plastic. And there's other people, and then all of you guys know everything, the PETG plastic. Yes, I'm very familiar with it. If you're going to make it so that is the only material that you are going to be printing in, you're not going to be laying up, resin or fiberglass over top. You might want to think about printing in like ABS plastic, which means you're going to need a printer capable of doing that. So basically what I'm saying is I'm going to continue to fork out new 3D files. I like it from a purely selfish perspective because even though it took me let's say 80 hours to build the 3D files out. Once I do that, I upload it and people just buy it. I don't need to ship anything. It's pretty cool. So I love it for that perspective. But I just want to make sure that everybody understands that it is not, the be all and end all process for creating RC submarine hulls. There's a lot of striations that need to be sanded, filled, to get rid of those marks. And as I just showed you or talked about, they are not the most ideal product for, a solid, robust RC submarine. I would say they are an entry-level product so that you can get your feet wet. Haha, you see what I did there? In the hobby. But once you do that, I think you'll understand that a professionally manufactured fiberglass kit, or even a styrene plastic kit for that matter, is going to hold up a lot more than a printed hull typically would be. So there you go. Typhoon CAD files, not a priority for me right now. I've actually got Ohio, I've got Akula, Those are the two I'll probably end up doing here pretty quick. Somebody is working with Anslem, a gentleman who's been reaching out to me for information on building his own RC submarine. Mentioned a gear pump. You're going to model a gear pump and print it. My God, man, why? Oh, God, they're so cheap. Professionally manufactured. Why are you complicating your life so much? Hey, that's fine. If you want to do it, that's just fine. You want to know what motor to put in the gear pump? Dude, I don't know what your pump looks like, what the housing looks like, what sort of volume you're trying to. How am I supposed to answer that question? Buy an assembled gear pump. Check for the flow, check for the pressure, and you're done. That's all you need to do. I'm not going to help you build a gear pump. I'm sorry. I would love to, but just buy it, guys. It's so cheap. There's a question about backlog for building models for people. I already touched on that. I'm not going to talk about it again. Ron, if you want to check back in the video, you'll see where I am at right there. 50 pounds. Holy cow, dude. How big of a gear pump are you trying to build? That's kind of crazy. Check RV, like recreational vehicle, water pumps, for faucets and shower heads and all that kind of stuff. They're not that bad. They shouldn't be that bad. But again, just think about this, guys. Economy of scale here again. It's like $50 or 50 pounds, which is like $80 US. Factor in your time. If it takes you 3.5 weeks and 4 prototypes, the 50 pounds was worth it. All right. All about the Monster Type 21. Did you miss an update? Hey, no, you didn't. Let's talk about it. So I'm sure everybody on here is checking out my forums on a regular basis because they're the most awesome place in the universe to go for answers about your RC submarine questions. Forum.rc-sub.com. I'm going to go back to Alan's question there in a bit. On there, I had posted up a video link to that huge 48 scale George Washington Carver. It's like a 9-foot long RC submarine. And I touched on what I would do to RC that. And basically I said, I would not put a cylinder in it. I would put a series of watertight boxes. And that got Ed Portal all fired up. He was super excited. And he posted up a like 2-page long post in the forum about how he put together his 148 scale skipjack class. And there is a boatload, literal boatload of amazing information in there on how to build an inexpensive watertight container for large scale RC submarines. Now, what I have elected to do was follow some of Ed's advice, and I had already laid some of this out, but this is what I've got going on for the Type 21. Type 21. Oh, here's a Type 21. Here, and a fully functional, operational mast system. I finally got working well on that boat. But here are is the idea behind it. So we're going to have, as it sits right now, probably 3 watertight boxes for the control and command of this submarine. I'm going to have a forward one that is going to house a couple of servos for the bow planes. I'm going to have a forward motor in there that is going to power the bow thruster. There is going to be a separate watertight box for pumps for the periscope system, pumps that are going to actuate the retracting forward dive planes and the retracting dive planes, and the opening torpedo doors. It's going to have a power analyzer built into it in there as well. Then we've got like an aft box that's going to have the main ballast pump and the main drive motors in there. This is going to be a hybrid system. It's going to have some OTW components, these motors I sourced specifically. And the watertight boxes, this is what I was really meaning to touch base on. So on the forums there, forum.rc-sub.com, these are dive boxes, watertight to, I believe Ed Tortle said they were supposed to be 80 feet, rated to 80 feet. Polycarbonate, like these are bulletproof boxes. And just look how easy it is to get in. If for those of you that know Engel and the way that they handle their dry hull submarine, there's about 800 bolts that you need to undo to take the lid off. This is literally 2 seconds. Oh, I'll try and do this one-handed. And you're done. Super excited about this. Now, what Ed had basically talked about, and I love this idea, is that rather than having a single cylinder, if there is a failure in any of those seals, you basically compromise, 90% of the components of your RC submarine. By building it in a modular fashion like this, if there is a leak in any one of them, the other components are still safe. The way that I'm going to do it, I'm going to follow his advice, actually. I'm not going to put conduits and run cables. I'm actually going to run bulkheads in here that electrical connections will be made to, so that each box is completely segregated and isolated from the next. So I'm excited about this. I really just started playing this morning. You can see I'm kind of like laying everything out on the workbench there. Gantu's here. He wanted a close-up of the boat. Here, let me show you what we got going on. Here's our forward end. Got opening and closing torpedo doors. These are all machined aluminum, by the way. Retracting bow planes, you can see those are going to work right there. Underneath, you've got a bow thruster that I custom built and printed out. This boat was initially designed as a dry hull submarine, very similar to, the Engel style boat, made into, separate watertight compartments, and there's supposed to be a bunch of bolts. You can still see the aftermath of those right there. You put a lid on there. Can you imagine this boat, completely dry on the inside? How much ballast you would need to put in that thing to get it to float at the proper waterline, and how much this boat would weigh to transport. Oh my God. It's ridiculous. And I know people have built them before, but they must have cranes and or 3 to 4 people helping them get it in and out of the water. As it stands right now, this boat will probably, I'm going to guess, is probably going to end up weighing somewhere in the vicinity of 70 pounds, maybe, all in once everything is in there. Maybe 80, get lots of batteries. But it's not going to be like 150 or 200 pounds that it would be otherwise. Show the last section in here. Oh, I got my bolt. Here we go. Beautiful brass props on this thing. You can see a drive belt operating the rudder there. In the top, we got our propellers. So that's the 21 and the drive components that are going to be. There's going to be a large central ballast tank with an insert in it that's going to allow the periscope system to sit in it. I'm still playing around with that. Maybe I'll do twin, ballast tanks nestled fore and aft of that. We'll figure it out. But that's where we're at right now. Got in contact with the guy here built. Oh, Built the Type 21 in 1/30th scale. He still has the master. He lost the molds. I wonder if that's the same boat. That would be kind of cool. I am actually really, really impressed with the accuracy of that Type 21 hull. Based on the blueprints that I have, it's pretty accurate. The guy did a really good job. Things kind of lined up just about right. So, since I have these on the workbench, I want to show these to you. These are two Revell of Germany. That's why I had these parts to show you, by the way. And hey, this is the fitting kit that would have gone into it, but these never used the fitting kit. And hey, that's a fully functional RC submarine, or it will be when it's done. These are plastic models put up by Revell of Germany, and you are going to be looking at $150 maybe for the kits. But look at the size of them. They're like 3 feet long, and they've got a beam of like 3 inches. That is what you want to be talking about here. Like I can grab this boat and pick it up with one hand. That's a good transport size. It's going to have good presence on and under the water, okay? These people with the micro boats are like masochists. They're slaves to pain. I don't know. There's a unique place in hell reserved for them. But I have the utmost respect for them. But at any rate, these particular boats, there's 2 of them that were put together by a friend of mine, have the beginnings of RC conversion in there. So we got all of the brass props, we've got our drive shafts, our control shafts, and everything. But I just wanted to show you what it kind of looks like to do a plastic model conversion of these kits. You got great detail in here. It would be a beautiful display model as well as a fully functional model. So just kind of bear that in mind. I'm a fan of these in so much as it helps to get people into this hobby inexpensively, okay? Revell of Germany also puts out other kits. They've got the Type 7, which is probably the most, kind of well-known, but there's other kits that Trumpeter puts out and Mobius Models puts out that are good for conversions. Just kind of bear that in mind. And if you go, again, onto the forums, forums.rc-sub.com, forum.rc-sub.com, or the link is on my website. You'll see lots of build blogs for people that have successfully converted those to RC operations. So again, I'm a big fan, but you'll get your feet wet with these, and then you're going to say, man, I want a 4-foot sub, I want a 5-foot sub, I want a 6-foot sub. And then you get into the really kind of professional RC submarine hulls that are manufactured from, fiberglass and that kind of thing. Yeah, so there you go. I don't think I missed any comments in here. I think we're good. All right. This is everything I've got queued up. I'm glad you guys caught me on the Type 21 update there. Oh, hey, got this stuff sitting in front of me. I might as well show it to you. This looks cool. Dave will recognize these. Been playing around with torpedo systems in a couple of different scales. This is 1/32nd scale. And this is 1/48th scale. These are going to eventually be kits. The 48th scale torpedoes are gas powered and they work exceptionally well. I get really good runtime. They run hot and true when I launch it. I'm having a heck of a time with these gas powered torpedoes and even these electric torpedoes. Now, if you checked my channel in the past, you'll see that these are like the bee's knees. Here, let's get it all hooked up. Listen. So the idea behind this is you've got a battery, motor, timer circuit, and a reed switch. Got my big fingers in the way there. The idea being that you have this kind of sitting in the tube, and you put a magnet next to it, and in 5-second runtime. That was a long 5 seconds. It makes a lot of noise. But the cool thing is when it's done, you literally shove it in the tube and you go back out again. Pull the magnet, it fires out again. And this is a 210 milliamp hour battery in here. This would basically all day would run this thing over and over and over again. Having some issues with the trim. The ass end floats up too high. It pulls air in from the surface. The prop gets surrounded by the air and it just kind of putters along on the surface. And this is confusing the hell out of me because I built these before and they worked so good. Video is on my channel there. You can check it out. But I think this is going to be the solution that I'm going to be going with for 30-second scale weapons. And I'm going to reimagine the launcher. Dave has seen these plastic tube launchers that I came up with, but I'm kind of taken with these brass tubes. They fit perfectly with really good tolerance in here, and this will allow me to solder, or you guys to solder, because I'm not going to make them for you, the release mechanism for the Torpedoes. So there you go, Torpedoes. Super exciting. 48 scale is cool because lots of people are running 48 scale. And of course the ARC model Type 7 kit and the Trumpeter Type 7 kit are both 48 scale. These are going to be what you're going to want to put in those. So I'd imagine a lot of people are going to be interested in that. And for those of you that have the big boats, the big Type 7 from like OTW, for example, this is what you'll be after for those. I've talked and talked and talked. I'm going to check the chats here one more time. Nope, we're good. That was a lot to cover on a Saturday morning. I haven't even had breakfast yet. I am starving. It's like noon right now. So before I get hangry and start yelling at people for stupid questions and that kind of thing, not that I haven't already done that, but I'm going to let all of you guys go and go about your Saturday. 57 people on board right now. Thanks for joining me. As always, if you have questions or comments, reach out to me. You can do that through my website. That chat thing, people love that. Just type your question in there and come straight to me. It's really cool. Hey, weekend workshop. You know, if people were interested or willing to come out here, or if we could get like a big group of people together, that would be awesome. I think a better idea would be to try and do it in conjunction with a sub run. So for example, if we did Groton, Connecticut this year, we could rent a meeting room at a local hotel and run a couple of workshops in there. That would be pretty cool. Yeah, so there you go, guys. I'm gonna let you go. Get out there, build some boats, buy some stuff, and I'll let you guys get back to your Saturday. I am Bob Martin, the RCSubGuy with the Nautilus, drydocks.com. Thanks for joining me. We'll catch you guys next time. Thanks.